But we are at the top of the hour, so we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I see folks, we've got quite a few participants on the line, and I know we have some more that'll be flowing in. So welcome to this discussion on the Community Impact Initiative and how we are looking to support community organizations through accessible and affordable financing. This session is being recorded for everyone's knowledge and will be available on our website after the session concludes. And if you would like the PowerPoint slides that we're going to share today, feel free to reach out to info@dcgreenbank.com, and we will be glad to share the PowerPoint slides with you. We will, before I go over the agenda and introductions of all of our presenters today, we will have some segments for question and answer after our first panel. We'll have opportunity for questions, and at the end of the presentation, we'll have opportunities for questions as well. You can utilize the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, where you can type a question in and it will be read aloud and answered. You could also, if you would like to ask your question live, you can use the raise hand feature and you will be put into a queue. And our fantastic behind the scenes person, Gary, will put you in the queue and make sure that your question you'll have the opportunity to ask your question. So thank you again for being here, and we are going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Shira Coombe. I am the Equal Access Advocate here at DC Green Bank. I help the bank focus on our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals and metrics and how that plays into the investments that we make. And we are here today to focus on the Community Impact Initiative. This program is over a year in the making and really thinking about its design and function and who and what and how. But the core of the Community Impact Initiative is giving the opportunity for community serving organizations, nonprofits, some small businesses, giving them the opportunity to make some needed changes, upgrades, and retrofits to their building, to make it more sustainable, to make it healthier, to lower operating costs. And there's a wide list of why folks come in with a project. But we understand that this is a group that many times are putting the needs of the building aside for the needs of the community. And so we at DC Green Bank really wanted to focus on offering affordable and accessible capital to those groups. And thus was the Community Impact Initiative was born. So we will be sharing a PowerPoint on the screen. So if we can get that PowerPoint up. And while that's coming up, I'll just give a little bit more background about the program and who we are at DC Green Bank. And so, like I said, we've been working on the Community Impact Initiative for a little over a year now, and we've excitedly launched or announced the first closing of our first pilot investment with Shiloh Baptist Church, where we were able to support Shiloh Baptist with more than $500,000 worth of funding for energy efficient upgrades, specifically a chiller for their primary sanctuary. And so we'll be hearing a little bit more from representatives from Shiloh in a bit, but that press release is available on our website. But it was very exciting to be able to go through this process, but also for Shiloh to be the first organization, house of worship, to go through this with us and really give us a lot of valuable feedback. And they worked alongside Charles King from Go Green Together, and to really figure out how this program works, and how we offer end-to-end support. And so we can go through go to the next slide, Gary. All right. So we've done our welcome. We've done a slight overview of the initiative. I'll dig in a little deeper in a second. We'll have a panel of members from the faith community. So Reverend Wallace Smith and Donald Richardson from Shiloh Baptist Church, Pastor Keith Bird from Zion Baptist, and Antoine Thompson from the Greater Washington region of Clean Cities Coalition, really be talking about what these projects mean to communities, to nonprofits and community serving organizations, and what things you should be thinking about in the course of your project planning. And then you'll be able to meet our partners from ThinkBox and from Go Green Together, and they'll be talking to you a bit about how they work with individual clients and what you can expect from them as we offer this additional layer of support. We'll go through getting started and what that means. Where do you start? Most folks are like, how do I sign up? We'll be talking about that. And then a Q&A session. So any other lingering questions that you have, we'll be happy to answer. You can go to the next slide, Gary. All right. So like I said, this is a pathway. This is the Community Impact Initiative is not a loan product. And so though we at DC Green Bank offer loans for sustainable and energy efficient retrofits and projects, this is not a loan product. This is a program to help you get connected to additional support. The financing anything can be, it can be any project can be long. It takes a lot of different steps and a lot of different layers. And then when we talk about education around green energy and green financing, sometimes it can be a lot to take on. And so we've brought on the partners in ThinkBox and Go Green Together to be able to support you. And both organizations have a wealth of experience to be able to walk you from end to end for your project in order to ensure the most successful and sustainable project for you and your organization. And so we've coined this as a green glove service. And how can we help you? How can we help make this as seamless as possible for you? And I just added a little clip about our work with Shiloh Baptist Church, which you'll hear a little bit more about in just a moment. And we can move over to the next slide. So our role, DC Green Bank is a capital provider in this program. And so we offer innovative financing solutions to prioritize sustainability, energy efficiency, more focus on renewable energy, and then also what it looks like to tap into economic inclusivity and just affordable and making sustainability affordable for DC residents, community organizations, and businesses. So we've helped to finance projects in stormwater management, green buildings. And so think of anything inside of your building, the heating and cooling system, thinking about the insulation, the lights, all of these have a sustainable aspect. Transportation electrification. So thinking about the fleets that you may be using if you have transportation, your organization offers transportation of any form, but also electric vehicle charging stations, and then solar energy. So solar panels on roofs or solar canopies over parking lots. We can help to support the financing of all of these types of projects. And we really want to focus on how do we help you to make your buildings more green, more efficient, operating at a lower cost and operating a lot better. Although a lot of buildings tend to be a bit older, or you're looking for maybe automated lighting systems, we can help them walk through the financing for all of these types of projects. So we're really excited for you to meet our partners. But first, we'd like for you to hear about some of the projects that have taken place. And so we have our panelists, Pastor Keith Bird from Zion Baptist Church, from Shiloh Baptist Church, we have Reverend Wallace Smith, who's the senior minister, and Donald Richardson, who's the chair of their board of trustees. And then we have Antoine Thompson from Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. and they'll be talking through the how they've experienced working with Go Green Together and with ThinkBox, and what this meant for them, their organization, and the communities that they serve. So we'll move into that panel now. All right, so as our panelists are joining, I'm going to give you all just a brief moment to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about the background of your project, and then we'll go into our kind of preloaded question and start to guide that conversation. So we can start with you, Pastor Bird.
Good afternoon to everyone. Good to see all of you, and certainly good to be a part of this movement. I consider this a movement. I am Pastor Keith William Bird Sr., and I'm the pastor of the Zion Baptist Church located in Northwest Washington, D.C. And we have been the proud recipients of this fruitful partnership to the tune of about $1.4 million to help us to do a number of things, inclusive of brand new HVAC systems for our building that's somewhere near 62 years old, new windows, new lighting, new water fixtures, you name it. They threw everything in the bag on us, Sister Shira, and so we took it, and we are now experiencing the savings. It's been somewhat odd because we've had the pandemic and have not been in full use, but are beginning to experience the savings and certainly enjoy the privileges of a new HVAC system. But we don't have to call somebody to come in and switch us over from winter to summer. We can do that. Everything is digital now. So we're grateful for this partnership. And I know I'm a part of the right group because I see my friend and mentor, the Prince of the District of Columbia clergy, in the person of the Reverend Dr. Wallace Charles Smith of the Great Shiloh Church. I will humbly defer to him.
Well, you ought to stop. Yeah. Sister Shira, I'll go next, and that's to just say we are certainly delighted for the partnership. And anytime I can be a part of anything involving Dr. Keith Bird, I'm glad to sign up. We have a long relationship through our Progressive National Baptist Convention. I sometimes feel like I'm in a time warp because a while ago, it's been 25 years now, I guess, we built a new church. And unfortunately, new churches don't stay new long. And we've had all kinds of structure issues, heating, lighting, and all of that. And we were delighted, I think, largely through Charles King, who we worked very closely with in the last several years, to be made aware of this program. And I have nothing but praise. It is the ideal example of a government and private partnership. And we have, I think it's 500,000 or so, maybe a little more than that, for a new HVAC system. And from the time we entered the new church, we've had problems with the HVAC system. And finally, I believe now they'll be solved, and we're looking forward to, as Dr. Bird said, having a relatively maintenance-free time, which will free up funds for us doing our community outreach work. And there's much work to be done in our community, a lot of new neighbors that we're trying to entice, if that's a good word, into our church. And I think we all benefit from the fact that we're not spending up to the penny just trying to maintain our facilities.
Thank you, Reverend Wallace and Pastor Bird. I'll go ahead and allow Dawn to talk about his role in Shiloh's project, and then we'll turn it over to Antoine for an introduction from Clean Cities Coalition.
Well, first of all, my name is not Nico, as it's appearing on the screen. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm happy to join today to talk about our project. My role at the church is the chair of the trustee board, and we are, as pastors talked about it, our systems are really 20 to 30 years old. So we're going through looking at those systems, and what we've discovered is there's an opportunity here to save the planet, as well as save us some funds that we can reinvest ultimately back to the work that we really want to do with the community. So happy to be a part of the panelists today.
Hi, Antoine Thompson, Executive Director for the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. We are a big champion of clean transportation, environmental justice, and equity. And we have a major initiative right now where we are trying to make sure that underserved communities are not left behind as the country moves towards clean transportation, particularly electrification. So two big things that we are working on. One is trying to deal with the access and charging deserts that currently exist in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. The federal government tracks where access to public charging is located. We know about banking deserts, we know about food deserts, but I want you to know now we have charging deserts. And why does that matter? Because our communities suffer the most from asthma and lung-related and breathing disorders. Our young people are out of school at the highest rate of any population group, regionally and nationally, based on asthma. Not at work, not at school, and that leads to lower school attendance, lower academic rates, lower employment rates. And so as the country moves towards electrification, we have access to public charging that you can put at your faith-based organization, at your for-profit business, provided that it is available to folks. And we also run a co-partners of an electric school bus program. And regionally, some of the districts are moving that direction, but it's more toxic. If there's a diesel bus, it's worse to be on that bus than it is to be behind that bus. And so we're also working on raising capital to help nonprofit and faith-based organizations to get rid of their legacy diesel buses. Passion of mine, because a lot of our faith-based organizations got those buses donated, and National Resource Defense Council, a number of groups will tell you that it's not good for the mothers of the church or the kids of the church to be on those diesel buses going to and from worship. And so we want to help get you some grants to get those old vehicles off the road and out of the DMV. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all. And as you can see, we have a wealth of different experiences, but all with a similar focus to make sure that we're providing the cleanest atmosphere for anyone utilizing your services, but also, we've heard some talk about lowering those operating costs and reduction of maintenance, which is always a great thing when you don't always have to call somebody in the middle of the night to fix something. So if you, if Don or Reverend Smith or Pastor Bird want to speak to this and talk about, what your challenges look like prior to your project. And so, as I think many on the call will be able to identify with what things look like before, to help them see the after. And so what did it look like prior to your project? What kind of challenges were you facing whether it was building facility maintenance, which we talked about a little bit, or, operating cost or maintenance cost even. What challenges were you facing, and what was that that point where you said we need to get some help and support, the technical and the financial help? What was that final straw that said we need to go help get some support on this?
Okay, I'll defer to Dr. Byrd.
Called Give Back. That's called Give Back.
That's right.
Let me just say, the first aspect of that you mentioned is incredible, and that is the maintenance. Our boiler system that has been replaced was the original boiler system in our building, and it operated on steam and all. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but every year there was something major that had to be done to it, or we wouldn't have heat, or we wouldn't have this. We were literally, it's hard to even plan for it. Even though I'm sure both of our churches have obvious maintenance expenses addressed in our annual budgets, you cannot prepare for the kinds of constant breakdowns in the boiler system. Sometimes they're major, sometimes they're minor, but all of them need to be addressed immediately because it directly impacts the effectiveness of your worship. Folks are cold or whatever. And so there are other practical things, but the thing that was really draining us as a congregation was the constant leaks, and we had these radiators. It was a mess, to be quite honest with you, and it was always something. And so we found ourselves, we probably have paid for, to be honest with you, just in my 16 years at the church, we probably have paid for a new HVAC system that we ended up having to finance and get completely, because there was always something wrong with the chiller. The chiller was there was something wrong every year. And you find yourself putting new components on something that's eventually just going to die. And that's where we were. And we got to the point where we said, we can't afford not to do this. And then the additional aspect of being more energy efficient, which makes the entire project really worth it. And quite honestly, the way we were advised to our friends at ThinkBox was to make it, Pastor, guess what? You all can't afford it. And that's the big thing. You can't afford this, because if you think about what you're spending now in maintenance and utilities, you're actually paying for a little bit more than you would be paying for a brand new system that would meet all of your needs, would help you reinvest money towards ministry, which is really what you want to do, as I heard said earlier, and it would be more energy efficient. It's just like it's a no-brainer if you can get. I'm glad we have a trustee ministry on, so he can speak the language of the trustee board, because I'm sure Dr. Smith and I have a hard time speaking that language. But if you can get your church to wrap their minds, your leadership, around the fact that you can afford it, and in fact you're already paying for it by not making that move, that's to me was our biggest challenge going into the project.
Yeah, I would add that just about everything Dr. Byrd said resonates with us. Recently, we formed a new green ministry, and one of the things that we have not been able to do is really fund it the way we would like. And so this project, we can now tout as an example of going green, and encourage the congregation to do the same. And our challenges, again, like Dr. Byrd's, have been such that many days in the heat of the summer, we have not even been able to worship in our sanctuary. Fortunately, we have our Family Life Center, and so we just kind of moved next door and set up chairs in the gymnasium. But we will be delighted in the heat of July and August not to have to do that again, and be able to stay right there in our sanctuary, because it's so important to many of the older members of our congregation who have given tremendously well to see to it that we would build this church and how to try and eradicate the debt. So this in many ways, this green initiative is going to help us across the board.
So I'll just echo my pastor and Dr. Bird. We have spent years of spending 10,000, 5,000, whatever. We brought in temporary air conditioning, trying to fix the system. And ultimately, it's just a waste of money. And so we got to the situation where we had to make a hard decision. Of course, the numbers that we were looking at can be quite shocking to our parishioners, because we're also trying to retire our mortgage and trying to make progress there. But those numbers were really astounding. But at the end of the day, we have been able to educate our congregation on the beauty of going green, and to ultimately we're going to save some operational costs. The Green Bank solution came to us, and it's making it possible for us to really take this step in the right direction. So we're appreciative.
Mhm.
Sure, I just wanted to mention that I love to, and much thanks to Darren and Denise. We were at the White House, Denise and I, last week, and really pushing to send a message that we've got to do even more to make sure resources, business, and development opportunities and opportunities for the whole ecosystem of the Black community, and we get access to those resources. We would love to, have an information table, come to your faith, your church, to talk about your members, about the importance of everyone's seeing the commercials on TV about electrification. They want to know about what does it mean to get an electric vehicle? What does it mean to charge at home? What does it mean to, for your business or organization? We're here to help, and we've got to get those resources into our folks so that we're not like one of those movies. And who remembers where the payphone was in your community, right? I used to be a city councilman, a state senator out of Buffalo. And I remember it was a problem before cell phones, and residents were always complaining the drug guys was at the corner at the payphone, right? They don't exist anymore. Home phones don't exist anymore. And soon the same will be for gas powered vehicles. There will always be a number of different models, but they will rapidly diminish. And we've got to make sure that our folks are not the last ones wondering why they go to the gas station, they can't get gas anymore, right? Right. And the industry is rapidly changing. And so we've got to make sure that our institutions and our members are plugged in, because it's happening right before their eyes. And if you all remember from 2006, from 1996 to about 2001 or two, there was an explosion of mobile devices. Remember that? Cell phones. The next thing you know I still had the same cell phone number since 2000, right? It was an explosion, and it's happening right before our eyes. And we can't just be spectators while this is happening. And so companies like ThinkBox and others and the Green Bank and all of us, we've got to innovate, lead, create opportunities, and bring people to the table that may not be at the table, so that we can flourish and grow as this market is exploding. Thank you. We're here to help and be a partner with you.
Shira, I have something to add
Yes.
to what Antoine said. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ardenise Everson. I am with ThinkBox and very, very proud to be here today. I want us as members of the faith-based community to stop using the term going green. I want today to be the last time that you say it. And I say that because, just like Antoine alluded to earlier with cell phones, I grew up in a time where I know about party lines. For some of you all who do, I remember having a phone at my grandmama's house that had a very long cord that would get tangled because you had to go through the house with the cord. Saying that we're going green is just, it's akin to having one of those wire-based cords and going through the house with the phone and the cord saying, I think I'm going to get a cell phone in 2022. So we no longer need to think we're going to get a cell phone. We need to have one. We need to have a smartphone. We've already gone green. So if you haven't, then you're behind. And we are definitely here to help you catch up, but we need to reframe the conversation. We're not going green. We've gone green. And we need to make sure that this community in particular, because it touches so many of us personally. I know Antoine is a member of, you're at up the street, right? Glenarden, First Baptist of Glenarden. I'm a member of Reed Temple. So I know in speaking with my church leadership recently about it, it's something that we just need to reframe. We're not going green. We've gone green. We just got to catch up.
So true. I mean, it's one of the fascinating things. I used to chair the Committee on Environmental Conservation when I was a state senator in New York, and that was 11 years ago today when I left office. And when I think about what's happening around the country, and it's really interesting. So the southern states, a lot further south than ours, actually are getting a lot of the manufacturing facilities. A lot of the infrastructure is accelerating there at a faster rate than the Mid-Atlantic. I was just on a call with the GSA, which is one of the major federal institutions that did a lot of purchasing. And I said to the young ladies that did the panel, they did a phenomenal job. But you would think that this area, which is considered to be a more progressive area in the country, right? Not like California, but more progressive. We actually have fewer charging stations for the federal fleets and agencies than the Northeast, and definitely behind California, but we're the nation's capital. And we have all these communities of color that are suffering from the toxins and all the cars that are in the heavy trucks that go on the Beltway, right? And so we've got to do more to push this so that we're not saying, well, how is the federal government pushing this, but our communities and the workers and the trucks and all the facilities, we're behind so-called places like Texas. Now this, I want everybody saying this, Texas actually has got more windmills, more solar panels, more electric vehicle building facilities and equipment than we have in the DMV. Think about that. All you hear, all the rhetoric, the facts are, and this is verifiable, they're further ahead in terms of installation, right? And so we've got a lot to do with the constituents that we represent to elevate our voices, to collaborate with one another, and make sure that 10 years from now, we're not saying, how did that happen? How did that happen? And this, think about it, Texas, all the rhetoric they talk about, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, West Virginia, they're getting all these plants, all this infrastructure, and who's going to benefit? The folks that live there. And so we've got to make sure that we are not left behind right here in the nation's capital. We got a lot of work to do, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of work to do. Thank you.
This has been a fantastic conversation. And so now I want to open it up to our participants for questions. I know we do have one question already. And so we'll go ahead and get started with that. But if anyone else has a question, feel free to use the Q&A feature to type your question, or comment, or you can use the raised hand and we'll get you in the queue. And so the question that we do have is, can you explain in more detail how the economics or financing of these projects work for churches or businesses? So I guess to give a short answer, DC Green Bank offers a variety of different financial products that we have in place. And so these projects could fit any of those. We have some organizations in our pipeline that want to do a redevelopment. And so they might be looking at some pre-development funding or construction funding for rebuilding. And so we were seeing a lot of that now. Churches are like, or even other organizations are just like, let's start over and we want to rebuild because it just makes more sense for us. We have some others who say, we just want to do some retrofitting. And so we want to take out that old equipment and replace it with the new equipment. We want to do some solar panels or solar canopies over our parking lot. And so we can be creative in building different financial solutions based on what your needs are. And that's a beauty of DC Green Bank and being the opportunity to be flexible. And I'm sure everyone on this call can attest, there's been a lot of conversations about flexibility and what we can do. And so we have the opportunity to be flexible, to be creative. We really want to focus on, especially with a lot of the retrofitting, on the savings. And so what are you anticipated to save? Are you anticipated to save $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year? And how can we turn that back into the repayment? And so you're not looking for extra money to pay back the financing, which you're not paying to the utility companies, you're paying back for the financing for your new equipment. And so we want to make sure that this, and you've heard me say plenty of times, this capital is affordable and accessible, because we don't want it to be burdensome for you to have better working and newer equipment. It shouldn't be a burden. It should kind of run in step with what you're already spending, or even less. Our hope is that it would be less. So then once the equipment is paid, the financing is paid back, then those savings are yours to keep and to do with whatever you choose to. And so we're really want to focus on financing based on those expected energy savings and making sure that it's not burdensome for organizations. So I hope that answer was helpful. Our website details all of the different financial products that we offer, but again, we have the opportunity to be flexible as well. And so we can sit and talk through what that looks like for each organization.
And Shara, Darren, are you available to provide some additional color to what Shara said as it relates to financing projects and how easy it's becoming, how easy we're making it?
Sure. Darren Coates, I'm one of the co-founders of ThinkBox. Thank you a lot for allowing us to participate today. Very happy to hold the camera with Pastor Bird, Reverend Smith, DC Legends, and I appreciate just being on the same panel with you guys. As it relates to financing, and Antoine, to your point, I've been in this business now 30 years. And so Antoine and Denise, your point about catching up is very applicable. We've been doing these projects for 30 years successfully. There's probably about 20 billion of these projects done every year. There should be 200 billion of these projects done every year. We have a huge infrastructure need. As you guys know, in the United States, there's over $5 trillion of deferred maintenance needed. So there's no shortage of projects. I think the challenge has been complexity. How do building owners, building managers understand these projects to a level that they feel comfortable entering into those? And so before, you had to have an engineering degree and an MBA to try to figure out the cost savings and the structures and whatnot. And there were very few companies that would help you through this unless you had a major project, 25, 50 million above. But I think now there are several more companies that can work on projects 100 million and over like we can, but also work on $1 million and under like we did with Pastor Bird. And so there are there are way more financing strategies now than there used to be, and that does create more complexity. But I would say organizations like the Green Bank are really critical to helping you not just understand the complexity of the engineering, the complexity of the financing, but to connect you with people that can walk you through it, that can get you from step one to step done. And like Shira said, these shouldn't be burdens. Like these, you shouldn't have to have a lot of brain damage on these at this point. And folks like Pastor Bird and Reverend Smith have paved the way. They endured the brain damage so that the rest of us can kind of come behind them as vanguard leaders often do. And so I think it will be easier. And guys like Charles King, it will be easier for you now to walk through this process because you have more help. But at the end of the day, there are tons of infrastructure needs. You have the money. They're going to positively impact the climate. They're going to positively impact your communities. And you're going to have excess capital to do it.
Just jump in really quick, because I think all of this is important, and it goes back to what you said earlier, Sister Denise, about the analogy you made about going green versus we've gone green. I think the challenge, and Dr. Smith can add to this, I think the challenge in the faith community, and Brother Richardson can add to this, is when you start throwing around numbers like $1 million, $1.5, $2 million to a local congregation. Shiloh is a major church. I'd like to think Zion is a major church, but we're not as large as Reed Temple. We're not as large as a First Baptist Church of Glen Arden. So when you start throwing around $500,000, $1 million, 1.4, and looking at what the subsequent monthly payments or whatever are, it is challenging for a congregation who has other needs, who has salaries, who wants to do ministry at an excellent level. So I think the crux for the faith community is the formulas that will work through with us with ThinkBox, so that we could see, hey, Pastor Bird, I know you're going to have to make, because we do ours through our tax payment, I know you're going to have to make $120,000 worth of payments annually, and you're going to have these 2 big payments. I know you have to do that, but get off the floor from having your heart attack and let me show you what you're already spending every year. See, that's what they had to convince me. The trustees were there. They said, Pastor, it's going to pay for itself. I said, sure, you're right, because we started off at $400,000, $500,000. I said, don't go over $700,000. Before I know it, we signing something with $1.4 million. You people can't count. But what I had to come to the conclusion was, we're already spending it. This is what you're spending now. And once they got me to see that that's in fact what we were spending, and that all we're doing is getting everything that we need to move our ministry into the future, and not paying too much more if we're paying more than what we're already paying. That was hard for me to understand. And because it was hard for me to understand, it was hard for me to have confidence in taking it to the congregation. And I just want us to understand, in the faith community, that's where the rub is. We know we need it, but we don't know that we can afford it. We just don't know it. And I think that's the real rub, to help leadership understand it, particularly the pastor, so that we will have the confidence to say to the congregation, I know we can do this, because here's what we're doing. Here's what our books look like. Here's what we're paying now for maintenance and utilities. And here's the projected savings. Now, we're a faith institution. How do we know that that's going to be our savings? I mean, that's what you're going to get at a church meeting. And that's when you have to be like Dr. Wallace Charles Smith, be so calm and convincing. God will make a way. No, we're actually paying it. But I can't say that enough. That's where our challenge was. It took us a long time, and I thank ThinkBox for their patience to actually make the decision, because we had to convince ourselves that what we were going to be asked to pay was something we could pay, because in fact, we were already paying it.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
You know,
Thank you.
Chairman, I got
ahead.
one question from somebody in the chat. Aisha, did you want me to respond to that, or Denise? Did you see the question? Someone asked about EV charging for an apartment building. Yes, very, very important. Either ThinkBox or ourselves can definitely help you with that. We have a number of vendors that we have on a list. All they have to do is they come by your site, they do an assessment. There's an application process. It's not a 30 days and you're done. It's a little process, but it's great. And we can get you level 2 chargers. That's the moderate size charger. It takes anyone from 4 to 6 hours to charge a vehicle. That technology will continue to accelerate, but we can get you that charger for one of our partners at a minimum to no cost to you. And in DC and some of the surrounding communities, as you do more development, and particularly for new construction, they actually are putting those into place where you got to have access to public charging as well. So this is happening right before our eyes. And if you want to learn about that, I'll put my email in the chat and we can have one of our partners who actually put the chargers in for you. We can get them out there and it doesn't cost you anything to have a conversation.
Antoine, I can connect you to Aisha offline.
Sure.
Aisha just received last week from the DC Green Bank, from their board, they approved a significant portion of funding for 3 developments that she is constructing. So we are extremely proud of Aisha and her company. And it is as Reverend Smith said earlier, this is a great example of public-private philanthropic work organizations working together to move us forward. So I'll connect you offline, Antoine, with Aisha.
I'd just like to add to that. I'm Charles King with Go Green Together. I am also a real estate developer. I co-developed the Dakota Crossing Shopping Center with Michelle, Pastor Hagens, and Trammell Crow. We have 12 Tesla charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations. We've had them for the past 3 or 4 years now. The process was relatively painless. We generate lots of income. They're in great use. So if anyone's interested on a real world empirical data gathering and what it was like, please give me a call. And I'll talk a little bit more, Shira. I didn't want to hijack the pastor's turn, but we can talk more about that.
Thank you all for this, just wealth of information and perspective. Thank you, Pastor Burt, Reverend Smith, Don. I think I'm going to speak for all 55 participants on this call and say that your insight and just how you all approached your projects and how you just speak so just plainly about what this means to your organization and to your community, I think really can resonate with a lot of folks on this line today. So I thank you and I appreciate you all for being here and sharing, and Antoine really bringing to light what the future looks like and how everyone on this call can be involved in the future. And so we start planning for the future now. That way we don't catch up and be in the past. And so thank you so much for your insight as well. There's plenty of information. Antoine's left contact information and websites in the chat as well. We are now going to move into hearing from our partners. So Charles King from Go Green Together and Denise and Darren from ThinkBox, and they'll be talking us through what this looks like on their end. And so I know I originally told y'all 10 minutes. We might have to kind of step around 7 because I want to make sure that we still have time for a question and answer session at the end. And so they will kind of talk us through what their processes look like, what you can expect working with them, and how they help, how they're such a big part of this program. And then we'll talk about how to get started. For those of you who've asked questions in the Q&A, we will be getting to your answers. So please know that we see you and we'll be answering those. We just want to keep moving for the interest of time as well. So I'm going to turn it over to the ThinkBox group as they share how they work on these projects and what their approach looks like.
Thank you, Shira. So I won't take a lot of time. I know we're getting to the top of the hour. So we are a full service development, financing, operations, and support company. We've been in this space pretty much since it started. We've done one of the first PACE projects in DC. We've done the largest energy efficiency project in DC. We've done the largest solar project in DC. We've developed over $150 million in projects that are on track to save over $200 million in utility costs. So we can talk about all that, but what I'll use the last couple of minutes is to really talk about our Sustainable Communities Project. So we are intentional about using these projects to impact communities. So we know we're going to impact climate. We know we're going to impact infrastructure, but we want to be intentional about impacting communities. And so for us, what that looks like is our Sustainable Communities Project, where we are creating jobs. So we've created over 300 jobs. We've trained over 100 DC residents in solar energy, installation, plumbing, and trades work. We have given out close to $100,000 now in scholarships for students attending STEM, or we call it STEAM, so STEM plus art. And we are promoting wellness and good health. And so these projects, although they're really, I think you've heard a lot about how good they are in terms of the infrastructure and fixing equipment and creating new developments, they also are really, really impactful for people's lives. And so when you do these projects, you're not just impacting your own infrastructure, but you are also impacting the climate and the community. Denise, if you want to wrap up our section with that, and then Shira, I'm happy to answer questions.
I want to add to what Darren said. Good afternoon again. My name is Denise Everson. I lead our Sustainable Communities Project at ThinkBox. And the Sustainable Communities Project is an ESG initiative. Many of us have heard about environmental social governance. ThinkBox has been doing this since 2012. So we are definitely an industry leader as it relates to taking money that we save our clients and reinvesting into the community. For Pastor Bird, that meant when his church has an event or when they need financial support, we're able to take some of those savings and directly infuse them into programs that impact the community. So we are definitely on the cutting edge of ESG. We are happy to be in the clean energy space. Yes, taking care of the climate is awesome, but taking care of our people and the communities that we serve needs to be our first priority. And for us, it is definitely our first priority. So we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I thank you to the guests that we've invited who have taken their time to join us today. Lastly, I'll close with the fact that ThinkBox is a general partner in a social impact fund. And for many of us who are familiar with social impact funds, this social impact fund that I'm referencing is called the Global Impact Fund 2. It's a multi-million-dollar fund aimed at supporting social ventures. So we do a lot. Our hands are in a lot of pots, and we do our jobs very well. Excellence is our brand and our standard, and we look forward to working with each of you. That's all I have right now, Shira. Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Now we'll turn it over to Charles King at Go Green Together.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Shira. Number one, it's an honor and a privilege to be here to talk to everyone today. And before I begin, I really, really have to thank the team at Shiloh Baptist Church, Reverend Wallace Charles Smith, Don Richardson, Joanne Beasley, Nico Giddings Critcher, and Tony Hill, because this project, when Go Green Together was approached by DC Green Bank about a year ago, I had worked with Shiloh over the years in doing some rehabilitative work. And they said, yes, we will be a participant. And I hate to use the word guinea pig, but they put in an inordinate amount of hours and dedication and focus and faith. I think Reverend Smith and Don and the team showed a lot of faith. And together we pulled off what I think is going to be an amazing program for all the churches to follow. I think everyone will owe them and Pastor Bird a debt. I have approximately, GGT has approximately 10 churches in the pipeline now, and all of them are going to benefit from what we've learned. Let me just start out by saying that Go Green Together is a company, an energy-related advisory company that provides both technical and financial assistance to a number of entities under the Community Impact Initiative, not just houses of worship, although that is our focus right now, but also other non-profit serving community entities. We work with the YMCAs, Miriam's Kitchen, Mary Center. We look at affordable housing projects that may need energy retrofitting. And what we do is one specific thing. Our goal is to make the entire energy retrofitting, energy sustainability process as straightforward, simple, painless, and financially beneficial as possible. And working with the Green Bank, I will tell you that I have been a developer and a financial advisor for almost 40 years. And when Eli Hobson and Shira came to us and said, hey, we have this new CII program, I really did a lot of due diligence. I used all my prowess in development and in finance, and I looked at the program and I determined this is one of the most beneficial programs for houses of worship and for our disenfranchised neighborhoods that I've ever seen. And I immediately jumped on board. And together, I think we have built the platform for a lot of churches and a lot of other community serving entities to really make a more greater impact in their ministry and their mission, because we're going to lower the operating costs and we're going to create more efficient, more environmentally friendly environments internally. Just to give, and I know we're short on time, so just to walk you through the process, any churches, and I know there are a lot of ministers that I've worked with over the years, in the last 20 years, through another company, CSG Urban Partners, with my partner, Simone Goring-Devaney. We've done about $1 billion worth of development, and we work a lot with churches. Some of you may know St. Matthew's Lutheran Church, which we redeveloped at the corner of Delaware and M Street. We worked with Shiloh, Florida Avenue Baptist, so many churches, so many other nonprofits. But with this program, what we do is we focus on energy efficiency. And so what we'll do to begin with is just to help you to understand what is the need, what is the requirement. And so we will go through with DCSEU, with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, and we will do an assessment of what your need is. We will then put together a budget because that's going to be critical for DC Green Bank to do their underwriting. We will then put a timeline together. We will then help you to negotiate the terms with DC Green Bank for this project financing. Now, we also leverage the DC Green Bank money with other non-conventional financing sources, such as enterprise lists, DHCD, historic tax credits. We have experience in all of those areas, and we make sure that the ultimate financial package is going to be the most beneficial to your church or other nonprofit entity. And then we monitor your efficiencies over the next 5 years to make sure you're getting the maximum return, the maximum operational optimization, and help you with the management of that. So it's full service. We're really looking forward to it. As I said, we have a backlog of churches, and I would encourage all of you, because of the BEPS initiative, to really get on board and see if this program is something that is worth it. But I think everything I've heard today said that we're waking, we know what we need to do, and together I think we can help our community in a much more substantial way. And thank you, Shira.
Fantastic. And we'll also be sharing contact information for Go Green Together and for ThinkBox in the chat. And so as that is happening, you'll be able to go onto their individual websites, learn a little bit more. They each have a intake form that you can do through them. And so this is just a preview of who we're working with and what kind of services they provide. So let's talk about getting started. That's a question that's been popping up in the chat. What do I do? How do I start? So we're going to talk a little bit about that now. And the slides will populate to show you as well as I talk through it. The first thing to do is identify who your key players are. Do you have a board of trustees or board members, project and building managers? Who is your primary point of contact? That will save you a lot of time and a lot of whether it's getting buy-in, if you need buy-in from a larger group, maybe a congregation or from a board, or if you need that project or building manager who knows where everything is and who knows what's broken and how old it is and how they've been putting Band-Aids on it. These are the people that you need on your team as you go forth with these projects. And so having those people identified in the beginning saves some time as you're going through, because it helps with a lot of the data that we're looking for, but also it helps with the streamlining of your project, because when it gets stuck because someone's trying to, you're trying to gain buy-in, then it's okay. And then the timeline is fine, but it delays on the timeline of being able to get the financing that you need to be able to start your project or finish your project. We have a community impact intake form on the DC Green Bank website, dcgreenbank.com. And we'll be sharing that in the chat as well. You can complete that and that will help you get connected to a partner as well. So there's so many avenues to get connected, whether you go through ThinkBox or through Go Green Together directly, or you come directly to DC Green Bank. Either way, you will still get connected. And that's just asking some initial questions about your project. What are you looking to do? Have you already done some of the work? Sometimes folks come to us and say, yes, this is my project. I know what we're doing, and this is how much we estimate it's going to cost, or what contractors have said it's going to cost based on the bids that we've received. And so they've already started some things. Some folks are like, I have an idea. I don't necessarily have a plan. I don't know how much it's going to cost. So we want to understand where you are in your project. And you will also be emailed the link to our community impact intake form after this session as well. The next step is getting you connected to a partner. And so they'll have some understanding of what you're looking for based on the outcome of the intake form that you complete. They're going to start assessing what your needs are, developing your priorities. And so maybe you have a laundry list of things that you're looking to get done, but want to start you want to do everything at once, or maybe kind of take smaller bites of it. They will help you determine what what your priorities are. They'll help you understand what your yearly upkeep and utility costs are, because sometimes we look at those things separately. And looking at the overall condition of your equipment. Is it, the same boiler you've had since 1957? Is this the most green and impactful machine that could be running in your building? And so they'll help you through all those pieces and really scoping out what your project looks like. They'll work with you on some initial assessments, initial energy assessments. What does it take to run your building? And not even just cost-wise, energy-wise, what does it take? They will start to help you develop the project timeline. So how long is this going to take? And when do you want to be done? And then realistically, how long is your project going to take? Everyone's favorite part, the budget. So how much is this going to cost? And who's going to do the work? And so if you have particular contractors in mind, or you want to work with contractors from particular communities, or maybe it's a local solar developer that or is a basketball buddy, let's work on getting those folks that business as well. And then it's the documentation part. So all the pieces that we need for the financing. And so helping you to gather the financials that you need, or any a lot of the pieces you already have of the contractor bids and budgets and pieces like that. And so we work with them to communicate what we're looking for in terms of documentation. And then we really start to get involved. And so we look at your project, we review all the aspects of it. What are the green aspects of your project? What are you looking to do? Who is this going to impact? You know, how does the larger community impact off of your project, and what kind of services you provide them? And there's no prescriptive form for that. It's really just wanting to understand what that looks like outside of the walls of your building. And then we start moving through the financing project on the DC Green Bank side, the financing process, excuse me, on the DC Green Bank side. And so in these 5 steps, we really get you from understanding in the starting point of your project to moving through the financing. How long does this take? That is the key question that everyone wants to know. How soon can I get this money? How long is this going to take? The best answer that I have for everyone on this call is how fast can you turn things over? How quickly are you willing to move? If you're looking for a shorter timeline, then having those right people in place to help expedite your project is going to be key. If it takes about, you have like a 2 to 3 week turnaround, then it's going to take that plus some time. And so we really want to focus on, projects that are ready to go, or even if you're still developing your project, we want you to be in a space where you're actively developing your project and they don't sit idle for too long. Because as we've heard here, we want to make sure that everyone is not only caught up, but ready for the future as well. And it's pretty simple. The beautiful thing is that you have a team of partners here on this line that will help you move through these processes and move through these steps. Versus trying to kind of navigate these things on your own when you may not have the manpower, the additional education or support to be able to do that. The great thing about this team, which I can personally speak to being on several calls with them in different capacities, is that they're very educated on clean energy. And so being able to not only walk through those things with you, but also explain to any of your stakeholders, any of your key players, what these things mean and how this affects your organization and how it affects your community. They are fantastic at doing that. And so they offer just the services they offer are beneficial outside of, the project management aspects. The educational aspects are just fantastic. So that is how you get started. That is how you start moving. And I do want to be able to open up the floor for more questions. And so we will, again, drop the links into the community impact intake form, as well as ThinkBox and Go Green Together's websites. And they all have their intake forms as well. I want to open up the floor for questions. Again, utilizing the Q&A feature, if you would like to type them in, or if you want to ask a question live, you can raise your hand and we will all be here to answer questions. And as we, so we'll move into that piece, and then we will wrap up around 1:30 this afternoon. Let's open the floor for questions.
Dr. Bill, we'll go ahead and promote you so you can ask your question live with us. Dr. Bill, go ahead. Dr. Bill, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Go ahead.
This is a full circle post the pandemic. Very grateful to see Darren again. And of course, Charles and I work together helping churches in the community. I want to thank Charles for inviting me to this. I really should be thanking Pamela Nelson for almost 2 years ago introducing me. And now I have a real good picture of what ThinkBox and what DC Green Bank and of course Charles's organization is trying to do. I just want to say, I think it is just so vital, and I think information is power when you use it. And so I want to say, and I think I'm safe to say on behalf of our ministers conference, which I now serve as the second vice president for, and Pastor President Lionel Edmonds, who we really want to be an advocate. This has been so enlightening, and I'm going to have to get on my friend Dr. Keith Bird, because we're together so frequently, for not sharing all this good information that's going on. But maybe that's because I'm in the National Baptist and he's in the Progressive National. But be that as it may, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I'm going to give Darren a public apology. You were trying to talk to me 2 years ago, Darren, about the importance of this, but I see it now. And I see it because I'm really engaged in the development process with so many churches and consulting along with Charles. And so I want to thank you all for really, continuing to press through and make it clear. And then, of course, Dr. Smith, as Dr. Bird said, a living legend in our city, and no greater church for you to come to the rescue of than the historic Shiloh Baptist Church and help them. So I just want you to know that I'm very grateful for this time. I am going to be an absolute advocate and seek to get you reconnected to a broader platform with the pastors now that I have good understanding. And between ThinkBox and Darren, we'll have to revisit. I know you're a Morehouse man, but we're going to have to revisit together about doing a complete development project and being a real example in the Deanwood community, the heart of our community, our African-American community, that which is left of it, quite frankly, but to really lift up a great example of what can be done. And so I look forward to connecting in that regard. So thank you all. And Charles, thank you so much for, with the busy schedule that we have, if you hadn't continued to tell me to be on it, I probably, would not have prioritized, but I'm very happy that I did, because this is, as Antoine said, not only now, but it is the future. And somebody said, it's not about going green. This is where we need to be. It has so many implications. It's been very educational. So thank you all so much.
Tyra, I have something to add. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you. I just want to follow up with something. Thank you, Dr. Bennett. And I have discussed this with the DC Green Bank. I also want to make sure that everyone on the call understands that there are a number of programs and initiatives that have been in place to help houses of worship. The Enterprise Foundation, LIST, DHCD all have programs, very active programs right now. And DC Green Bank encourages at least Go Green Together to bring some of those alternative financing sources. I had a very long conversation with Doyle Mitchell at Industrial Bank and with some other banks, and they're all very interested in this. I've had conversations with the National NAACP and the president there. There are a plethora of ways that we can assist you with your houses of worships and your energy retrofit. I think Green Bank is the tip of the spear. I think that, they can start the process, but we can bring in a lot of other sources to help you to get you the best, the optimal financing structure so that it is, as I said earlier, financially as painless as possible. So don't think that it's only Green Bank, but they encourage us to leverage their money in other ways. And that's what we seek to do. Sorry.
And Denise, before you jump in, let me just respond to Dr. Bennett. Dr. Bennett, great to have you on. Certainly no apologies necessary. You've been a pioneer in the city for many, 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 many years. As Pastor Bird said, it took us probably 2 years plus to get Pastor Bird on board. And I think most of that was because lightning struck the building and they didn't have any air conditioning. So they were predisposed to going through the process. But it's a challenging process. It's complex. That's why Charles and DC Green Bank and I are here. So we appreciate you still being around. I think Pastor Bird said we are patient. If nothing else in this community, patience is a virtue. And so we are looking forward to restarting our discussions with you and with Mr. King.
I wanted to add, Dr. Bennett, it would be awesome in your role and your capacity in leadership if you could take get a consensus among your members as to what their needs are and package those needs into one ask. Charles at his organization and Darren and I at ThinkBox will be more than happy to assist with a package deal. When I say a package deal, it takes the same amount of energy to do a little project as it does to do a big project. And imagine what trailblazers your conference can be if you lead that charge, not in 2 years, but now lead that charge into gathering all of the capital needs and energy efficiency wants and desires that your members have into one ask, and having Charles from his organization and Darren and I from ThinkBox help you and your members meet those goals.
And there are efforts underway organizationally. The DC Baptist Convention, Shira and I were DC Green Bank and Go Green Together were sponsors at their 45th convocation. We got to talk to a lot of churches. The downtown cluster of churches, we're making a presentation in a couple of weeks. So to your point, Denise, the one-offs are fine, but people on the line like Dr. Bennett, who are in positions of influence with organizations, it's much more helpful, I think, to get the message out in mass. And I know, Shira, we've been talking about how to do that. So anyone on the call who can help in that process, as Denise says, working together, ThinkBox and Go Green together, I think we can provide the types of services quicker. And I think that's the issue, because when you look at BEPS, particularly for some of the larger churches, you're under the gun in terms of making sure that your energy retrofitting needs are met. I was working last weekend with an 80,000 square foot potential entry, and everyone's getting nervous because the backlog is real. And the fines that I think that are going to be imposed on people in the future are going to be real because they're serious. So this is something not, as everyone keeps saying, not to take lightly and to think, well, I'll get to it because it's today. And I think Green Bank is the perfect, NBCSEU are the perfect entities to move us along, but we can't be caught waiting.
We have a question from Pamela. So Pamela, I believe you're going to be promoted up now.
If that's Pamela Nelson, then we should all say thank you to Ms. Nelson. She has been banging the drum on churches now for at least over 5 years, and has done an incredible amount of groundwork just in introducing the concept, letting churches know what's out here, and being able for Green Bank to take that work and build on it now, I think is awesome. So Ms. Nelson, and I'm glad Dr. Bennett mentioned your name. Thank you so much for dragging ThinkBox into this 5 years ago, kicking and screaming, but we're certainly happy that we have taken this role, and glad to see you on the call today.
Pamela, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself and join the call.
Looks like Pamela, you look like you're still on mute there.
Yeah, Pamela, go ahead and unmute yourself. If you're ready to chat, looks like you might be on your phone. Go ahead, Pamela.
I'm so sorry. Are you hearing me?
There we go. Yes, we have you. Thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. Darren and Pastor Bennett, thank you ever so much. Yes, I've been on this drum roll on behalf of the Office of the People's Council, actually for well over 5 years. Wanting to get churches healthy, not only the churches, but also the congregation. So I am more than excited. Pastor Bennett, yes, we're coming back to you and to all the other associations, the Baptist Convention associations, and all the others that we have spoken to, because as everyone has said, the time is now. You got to get going. So let's do it together for a healthier environment. Of course, we are much older, getting older, but our kids need to enjoy the benefits that we did when the air was clean. You know, they can go out and play at will, etc., etc. So let's get going. I'm excited and happy to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for that charge for everyone to get up and get going and start with their project. I know we have about 10 minutes left for any remaining questions that may be out there. And just to, you know, I know we've heard from a lot of leaders, a lot of faith leaders today, and folks who've had projects done and worked with us in various ways. And just to know that this program is open to really any community serving organization, child care centers, of course, houses of worship, small businesses that have an impact on the community. And so thinking health clinics or shelters, food pantries, in any way that a community service is being provided, whether you're registered 501c3 or not, we want to work with you, and we can work with you. And so we want to, you know, make sure folks know and understand that there's a wide variety of different organizations that can take part in the Community Impact Initiative. And if you look in the chat, we've given a short list, because I think the list can be much longer. We've given a short list of all different types of organizations that we want to work with. And if you're not quite sure if your organization could be included, talk to us, let us know, and we'd be glad to get on the phone with you and kind of talk through what your needs are and what that looks like for you. Do we have any other questions? Or maybe we'll wrap up a little early and grab some lunch. Great, Gary, I just want to do one final check that we don't have any other hands raised.
Pamela, if you have another question, we can let you back in. I don't know if you accidentally raised your hand again this time.
I do not have another question. Actually, my hands is lowered. I don't know why you're seeing it raised.
Oh, okay. Might just be my computer then.
Okay.
Right. Well, on behalf of DC Green Bank and ThinkBox and Go Green Together, I want to thank everyone for being here today. This was a fantastic conversation. We had some amazing questions in the chat and in the Q&A feature as well. And so we thank you all for helping us launch the Community Impact Initiative. We look forward to seeing your intake forms and hearing about your projects and getting started on your projects. This, again, the session has been recorded, so it'll be available on our website as well for you to revisit and share. Encourage everyone to share with another organization that you know that could use some of this support. And if you have any questions, we'll also drop our email addresses in the chat. And you can always email info@dcgreenbank.com or reach out to us through our website, dcgreenbank.com. Thank you all for being here.
Shira, thank you for all of your work and all the behind the scenes effort that went into making this a very successful event. We're so happy that DC Green Bank is up and running. And that you are in the role that you are in, and you have our full support.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Gary. I know we can't see you, but thank you very much for helping Shira put this together. There'll be a lot more of these. And so thank the whole team. Thank Eli and Matthew and all of you, because it takes a team. And you all really stuck in there. And I really, again, thank the pastors, Bird and Dr. Reverend Smith, because without you two, we wouldn't be here. So thank you all very, very
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah.
Enjoy your week.
Yes. Let's go ahead and get those projects started.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Have a fantastic
Bye.
day.